Coder for the first speaker. Let me do the honors with introducing Ms. Coder. Ms. Coder is a Chief Policy Officer of the Digital Therapeutics Alliance, DTA, an international nonprofit trade association of industry leaders and stakeholders dedicated to improving clinical and health economics outcomes through the use of high-quality, evidence-based digital therapeutics. Ms. Coder founded DTA in 2017 and remains instrumental in developing the foundation of this quickly evolving industry. She leads DTA's effort related to the leadership, global policy, international standard development, and the Alliance's DTA value assessment and integration guideline. I also learned that she just returned home to UK from Washington, D.C. from the international meeting of DTA. Ms. Coder will have her presentation on embarking on a new era for digital therapeutics, value assessment, and integration. Let's all welcome Ms. Coder, please.
Thank you. All right, so I today am really grateful to be here with you. I will be sharing our presentation. I will not be able to see, well, let's see. When I'm doing this, I'm unable to see if there are any comments or chats. So I would like to give the presentation, and after we are done and after Ms. Kwan's presentation, I look forward to having much more of a discussion about what this is and why we are working on these topics. So with that, as already discussed, the Digital Therapeutics Alliance is a group of companies that came together in 2017. And from the initial onset, our goal has always been, let's make sure that products that are on the market that are claiming to be a digital therapeutic are safe and effective, and that payers and patients and clinicians are really able to understand what these products are, how to evaluate them, and how to use them in real-world settings. Our goal has really been from the onset and continues to be really to look at how do we transform global healthcare by really advancing digital therapeutics that really are able to improve both the clinical and health economic outcomes of patients and population health. So let us start at the beginning. My background is as a pharmacist, and when I'm working with patients and I'm dispensing medications, just because a product may come in a similar style, it may look the same as another product, patients generally know to ask, what do these different medications do? So if two tablets are blue and a patient receives two different tablets, they know to ask the question, what does this one do versus what does this one do? Digital therapeutics are still at a very different phase yet. A lot of times patients will just assume, and other individuals, that since a product is digital, it must just be, and then fill in the blank. And usually that blank that patients assume is a digital health and wellness app. Other times there's a notion now in this industry where if a product is digital, it must be therapeutic. And that is not always the case. So I am including this chart here. And this is something that we put together to start to demonstrate an example of the different types of digital health technologies that exist in the industry. They range all the way from enterprise support, where you're having digital products to help with healthcare systems. You have clinician-focused products, and then you have the patient wellness and support products, which are more of those activity and fitness trackers and wearables and even medication reminder apps. And then we often see a lot of diagnostic and monitoring tools. And then we have those that are actually therapeutic. Our work within DTA is focused really in this therapeutic side, the dark blue, which is hard to distinguish, but we're really focused on those products that are using software to actually deliver a medical intervention to a patient. And that intervention is claiming to actually treat, manage, or prevent a disease or disorder. So this is a notion where you're having software that can be hosted on a variety of different devices, but that a patient has been authorized to use this by a clinician or a payer or a policymaker of some sort. So they're using this digital therapeutic product. The product itself is delivering this type of a clinical intervention to a patient, and that intervention, again, is actually impacting a disease state to prevent, manage, or treat that disease state. So these products are able to be used, though, in context with and alongside of other products. So it's very possible to have a product being dispensed or authorized to a patient and it being used alongside of a medication or a clinician-delivered therapy. So while a digital therapeutic delivers a therapy to a patient in and of its own right by itself, it also can work alongside and does work alongside of other therapies delivered by clinicians and medications. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the principles and background, and then we'll go into some more examples of what a DTX is. So in terms of what our work is within DTA, when I founded DTA in 2017, I worked with our member companies to create 10 core principles that are really supposed to be the foundation of what a digital therapeutic is. And from our perspective, we are thrilled to see the proliferation and expansion of the types of digital therapeutic products available to patients. But from our perspective, it is really important that they have a lot of these core principles or all of these core principles to ensure that they are safe and effective in patient care. So the notion of making sure that you have manufacturing best practices, that you are engaging end users throughout the development process, that they protect patient privacy and product security, that they are actually able to publish clinical trials in peer-reviewed journals, and then that they are regulated by regulatory agencies is really important to what a digital therapeutic is. There are many different ways that products can deliver their impact, and some examples are provided here. So the notion of using software to deliver personalized disease treatment or management programs to a patient is one example. Digital therapeutics can also be used alongside, as I mentioned, of other products. So they're able to be used to treat the comorbidities of a patient or possibly the side effects of a medication. One example would be cancer, where you'd have a patient receiving chemotherapy and a digital therapeutic would actually help manage the patient's symptoms to see if that patient can stay on their chemotherapy regimen longer by the digital therapeutic helping reduce the patient's nausea, vomiting, or other side effects of some of their treatments. There are some products that are also delivering direct neurologic changes. So those are examples of products that may be in the format of a video game or VR headset, something that is actually directly impacting the patient's neurology. And then cognitive behavioral therapy is another example. And as you see here, some notions of responsive physical exercise and behavioral interventions. And a lot of what a digital therapeutic is, it's not only the digitization of a pen and paper environment therapy, but it's really a reactive, responsive, patient-specific intervention where the intervention is being delivered and the DTX software is able to engage with that patient and say, you now need to take 6 more units of insulin based upon your condition, or you now need to use your inhaler at a specific time because you're about to have an asthma attack, or so forth. So those are just some examples. In terms of DTA, when we founded the industry, we really we did not found the industry. When we founded the Alliance, we were focused on helping build the foundation of the industry. So as I mentioned, we created an initial definition and core principles for digital therapeutics. And then as our work has evolved, we've really come into the space of really trying to make sure that we can help provide the right tools for healthcare decision makers as they use and really engage in this industry and with these products. One example of the work that we've done recently has been creating this product library. So on the Digital Therapeutic Alliance's website, we have a library of products that are examples for individuals to understand what is a DTX and what are these products intending to do. So all of these products have attested to aligning with our 10 core principles and give some examples of the depth and the scope of the types of indications that they address and also the ways that they deliver their therapeutic impact. Another example of something we've done is we started to look at 8 different countries and look at what are their current regulatory and reimbursement pathways. What is really interesting has already been interesting to see is that these pathways have already been maturing. So every year we will be updating these pathways to really recognize all of the evolution. And South Korea has been an amazing example where we've seen South Korea start in 2020 with acknowledging what a digital therapeutic is and evolving your frameworks immensely to a really impressive state. So I do look forward to evolving our own understanding of South Korea's regulatory and reimbursement pathways. So what I would like to spend a few moments on is describing some of our work with this DTX Value Assessment and Integration Guide. This is a document that we released publicly last month, and really the goal of this is to help start to bring some consistency and harmonization to the types of requirements that are existing for digital therapeutic products. What we've recognized is that in all these different regions, since the digital therapeutic industry is only 10 years old, there's a lot of healthcare decision makers in individual health systems and hospitals that are really needing to take on the responsibility of creating their own requirements to evaluate a digital therapeutic. So what we're trying to do is start a conversation now to talk about how can we start to look at the core requirements for evaluating a digital therapeutic and see if we can make that a little bit more consistent at the local and the national and even the broader regional levels to ensure that digital therapeutic manufacturers can meet these requirements and therefore that patients can be given access to therapies that they may actually need that have never been available to them before. So some of the topics included in this guide are clinical impact. So looking at what type of impact does a digital therapeutic provide? We touch on different aspects of regulatory and security and data governance. What are some considerations that decision makers should be using as they develop these frameworks to ensure data governance is the requirements are met? Clinical evidence and real-world outcomes are really important too. The notion of doing a clinical trial, a randomized controlled trial, is really important to a digital therapeutic, in addition to undertaking the real-world outcomes from the real-world data, product performance, and real-world evidence perspectives of a DTX. And then we also touch on economic assessment, implementation of digital therapeutics in practice, and then also providing an example of some benchmark questions that payers could use as they evaluate these products. And we list here a number of different real-world scenarios of how this can be used. So this guide is not meant to be the one thing to say this product works in this setting or it does not work in this setting, but instead it's meant to really start this conversation around what is a digital therapeutic? How to identify these products? What considerations should we be making as we start to look at what safety, efficacy, and impact really are for a patient? So one example that, actually two examples in here of that we've included here is one chart titled, "Is this product a DTX?" And it gets this conversation started in terms of if you have a product in front of you that says it's a therapeutic or a general digital product, how do you actually determine if it is or is not a digital therapeutic? And this is an example of something that we've put together based on our definition to try to help people understand whether this is or is not. So again, if the product is intended to monitor or diagnose only, then it likely is not a digital therapeutic. That said, a DTX that does actually treat a condition could incorporate aspects of a monitoring or diagnostic into the product, but we're really looking at a product that is claiming to use software to actually treat a disease or manage that disease, as an example. And then the notion of looking at the degree of clinician involvement. Clinicians will oftentimes prescribe or authorize a digital therapeutic product. While that is not a requirement, if a clinician is solely the one responsible for making that decision, and they're using a digital product as a clinical decision support tool, then that likely is not a digital therapeutic. We're really looking at products that are using software to directly deliver a therapeutic intervention to a patient to meet its intended use and outcome. And one of the last examples in this guide that we've included is just a way to look at this broader ecosystem. This is not comprehensive. This will continue to evolve. It's just one example of a way to look at this. But in the context of patient care, when you're looking at monitoring and diagnosis and treatment decision-making, and then the actual delivery of care, digital therapeutics are really falling into that final treatment and ongoing care perspective and are clinical grade because they are recognized as a medical device and they are making an impact on a disease state. So my last slide here, and this is hopefully part of our discussion today, but we're looking at this notion around oftentimes countries who are starting to regulate digital therapeutics will start by developing a regulatory pathway. Then they'll move along into creating a reimbursement framework. From there, it's engaging clinicians. And as we've learned from Germany, the notion of engaging clinicians much earlier on in the process is really important to make sure that once patients are given access to these products, that the clinicians really understand how to use them and how to authorize and educate about them. And then we see much more of that broader commercialization model. How do we actually give patients access to digital therapeutics at the country level and local levels? And then how do we really have full-scale patient use and access to the point where these are really impacting every aspect of a patient's life, as they're tended to do through their design. So I will wrap my comments up there, but I do look forward to the next steps. And Ms. Kwan, I look forward to your presentation that I think brings more specificity to digital therapeutics in South Korea in particular.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was a great presentation. All of us here in Korea and worldwide was thrilled when the Pear Therapeutics first received their FDA approval in 2017, which is just about the time when this alliance has formed in 2017. So what we'll do is we'll learn about more about the Korean experience from Ms. Kwan, and we'll go on a discussion.